Hello friends! I know a lot of you are watching this video from the comfortable confines of your homes, thinking to yourself, life is wonderful, living your best lives with your spouses and your children and perhaps your fur babies. But through the grapevine, either at work by the water cooler or at a family event, you've heard that one of your family members or one of your business partners is getting a divorce. Maybe you even called them and offered them the requisite words of comfort and support, and then kind of put it out of your mind thinking, this can never happen to me. Well, think again, because if you hear a knock at the front door, open it and see that it is a process server who then hands you paperwork saying that you are either a third-party defendant or third-party respondent or maybe even a corporate defendant in a divorce. Guess what? You just got dragged into somebody else's divorce case. Maybe it's a family member or, as I mentioned, a business partner. And being dragged into someone else's divorce can happen for a variety of reasons, depending upon your relationship with the divorcing couple. So on today's video, we are going to get into how you can get dragged into someone else's divorce. Welcome back to the Divorce Broadcast. My name is Manny Segarra, coming to you from Miami, Florida. All right, so getting involved in someone else's divorce case, either as a third-party respondent, third-party defendant, or as a corporate defendant, someone who represents a corporation, can be both an unexpected and burdensome experience, which can have a range of personal, financial, and emotional long-lasting consequences, which we're going to get into right now. One of the first consequences is the time burden imposed by these divorce cases. Remember that divorce cases or any type of litigation has certain time commitments. So they will have to miss work or networking or business procurement or time with their families in order to either attend court or attend depositions, or if they choose to hire counsel, to meet with their attorneys in order to prepare for the case if there's a mediation. These time constraints are real. Additionally, these individuals may have to incur legal fees and the expense associated with that. If they choose to hire counsel, if they choose to hire an attorney to represent them in the divorce case, they're going to have to pay for a retainer. They may have to pay in order to get some sort of forensic expert or an other type of expert in order to help them defend their interests in the divorce case. Also, there is a loss of income. Remember, time spent in court or preparing for depositions, it takes a lot of time, and these people will lose the opportunity to either earn income or possibly find additional income by networking or whatever they spend their daily lives doing, especially if the case drags on and it takes a long time to settle. Likewise, we must talk about the emotional stress as a consequence of being dragged into someone else's divorce case. I know that we can all relate if we have close friends or people that we associate with, colleagues or someone who may be an acquaintance. If they get divorced with their spouse, a lot of times the friends, they all draw battle lines and they choose, if there's a husband and a wife, they choose team husband or team wife for whatever reason, and these battle lines are drawn and they are solid. Well, the same thing happens to these individuals that are dragged into the divorce. If they had a good relationship with one or both of the parties, they may have to choose which side to be on. It's hard to stay neutral, and if they do, the relationship with one or both of the spouses will be strained. It will also have an emotional toll on these individuals. They will be privy to all of the events that occur in a divorce. They may be asked to even testify about personal matters that they know about between the parties. It may cause conflict with other friends and family members. Again, family and friends, they may decide to pick sides. They may decide to be on team wife, and if these individuals aren't on the same page, well, the wife's team is not going to like these people. So it creates an inherent conflict of loyalty. The person who's dragged into divorce may feel torn and they may have to choose sides, and it may not go well for them. Also, these people who are dragged into someone else's divorce case may face legal complications as a consequence. What I mean by that is oftentimes in divorce cases, discovery is a big deal. One of the parties may decide to issue a subpoena to these individuals, asking for business records or bank account statements or QuickBooks or information like that, and failure to comply with those requests may in turn cause the individuals to be sanctioned by the court. So there are legal consequences with not actively complying or participating in a divorce case. It also exposes these individuals to certain liability. If they own a joint business with one of the parties, or if they have real estate with one of the parties, that asset may be at risk during the course of someone else's divorce. Another big consequence of being dragged into someone else's divorce is an intrusion of privacy. What I mean by this is that oftentimes in divorce case, there is a disclosure of private information during the discovery process. This means that a lot of times the disclosure in these divorce cases can include financial records, emails, text messages, communications between these individuals and the married couple. A lot of times there can be discovery depositions or questions asked about how these individuals had a relationship with the couple that is married and going through a divorce, and this can all lead to a very uncomfortable loss of privacy. Additionally, remember that oftentimes divorce cases are public record in a lot of these jurisdictions. So all the dirty laundry oftentimes gets aired out in public. Court documents such as testimony that is on transcripts or exhibits that show private information, all of that is on the court's docket and can be seen by anyone in the public. Very uncomfortable for these individuals dragged into these cases. And finally, the last consequence that we're going to touch upon, at least in this video, is how getting dragged into someone else's divorce case can have long-term impacts on the relationship that these individuals have with either one or both of the parties. Think about it. They may be alienated from one of the parties after they participated in a divorce. If they're called or if they're compelled to give testimony about one of the parties, maybe they're forced to testify that the husband is abusive or has a anger control problem, or if they have to testify that the wife has a substance abuse problem or she drinks alcohol excessively. Well, this testimony may in turn cause irreparable harm between these individuals and the party that they have to testify about. Even neutral testimony, even being involved in a neutral way, can have an effect on one of the parties and make these individuals no longer have a good relationship with them. It can also have a big impact on children. For those of you who are in blended families, if you are with somebody who is going through a divorce or some sort of custody dispute, you may be called to testify in court, and you're going to have to say what it is that you see and maybe what it is that you feel. And if you sit there and you attack the other spouse or the other parent, that may cause harm that can never be remedied in the future with that other parent. So everyone, be aware, be very, very aware. All right, so now that we talked about some of the consequences of what happens if you get dragged into someone else's divorce case, let's give some common scenarios on how someone can actually get dragged into someone else's divorce case. In other words, if you are in this type of situation and you find out that the people that you are involved with are getting a divorce, be on the lookout and prepare yourself for what may come your way. One of the most common ways that an individual can get dragged into someone else's divorce case is if they own a joint asset with one of the spouses, either real estate or has a business with that spouse or has an investment with that spouse. They may get dragged into the divorce case because the court is trying to determine who owns or what the ownership interest is in that property, which may be a marital asset. That individual may be brought into court to clarify what the ownership interests are or to negotiate the distribution of that asset depending upon the statute of that particular jurisdiction. A great example of this is when a family member co-signs or is on the note or the deed of a property that is purchased with one of the spouses after the marriage. That asset or that property may be subject to equitable distribution by the court. So all of you family members who are helping out your siblings or your children who are now married, tread carefully. Be very aware of the equitable distribution statute. Another great example is when this third party or these other individuals are financially intertwined or financially involved with one of the spouses. As I just mentioned, maybe they're business partners. So the court will have to determine the nature of the business and how much it's worth and how much of that can be a marital asset. Maybe an accountant or a financial advisor of that spouse who may be involved to try to figure out what it is that's happening in that case. A really popular example is a family member, someone who is the parent or the sibling of one of the spouses. Maybe they bought a property together, maybe they bought real estate together after the couple was married. Well, in that case, that real estate or that property may have a marital component depending upon the statute, and that third party, that parent or that sibling, may get dragged into the divorce case to have the court determine if there is a marital asset and if any marital funds were used to either purchase that property or improve that property, depending upon what the statute of that particular jurisdiction is. Another big issue that a third party may get involved in is if they are involved in some of the marital issues. A great example is a paramour. A paramour is an individual who is having some sort of intimate relations with one of the spouses during the marriage. That spouse who finds out about the infidelity may have a dissipation claim. So they may ask that paramour to either appear for depositions to explain how it is that they were involved with their spouse, if there was any dissipation, if there was any use of marital funds. Did they go on trips? Did they go out to nice dinners? Did one of the spouses spend money on this paramour, either buying them a car, furniture, or expensive jewelry or something like that? There may be a claim for the alienation of affection of that spouse. So that paramour can actually be brought in as a third-party defendant in some jurisdictions. So you got to check the statute to see what it says about third parties who are paramours to be added as a third-party defendant. One of the traditional ways that someone may get dragged into divorce cases if they're subpoenaed as a witness. Maybe they have information about what is going on in the marital estate. Maybe they are friends and they can opine or give testimony about the relationship, if there was domestic violence, if there was substance abuse, if their parenting style. Maybe they're co-workers and they can talk about if there was an affair on the job site or if they are acting inappropriately at work by stealing money or misappropriation. Maybe they're relatives. You know that they are usually our biggest support system. Well, grandma and auntie and your siblings, they may get dragged into divorce court to testify as to what the issues are in the case. A lot of times the relatives will testify about children's issues. So no one in the approximate family or friend circle is safe from possibly being subpoenaed if they are aware of information that is relevant to the divorce. Another group of individuals who may get dragged are step parents. And what I mean by that is after the parties get divorced, maybe they get married to someone else, and that new step parent will observe what's going on if there are any custody issues with that other parent. The step parent may be called to court to testify about any type of missed time sharing or visitation. If the other parent missed the holidays, if the other parent is acting inappropriately, if the other parent has some sort of substance abuse issues. So step parents, be prepared. You may be called to court. And the last group of people that we will touch upon, at least in this video, are anybody who deals with the educational and medical issues relating to the children. When it comes to education, we're talking about the principals and the school teachers. They may get dragged into court depending upon the issue. Remember, we just did a video on school placement recently. In those cases, the principal or the teachers may get called into court. The other individuals are the medical treatment professionals, the primary care physician. If that physician is called to testify about which parent brings the children to the doctor's office, or if the dentist is called to testify about which parent brings them to get their teeth fixed, or if there's a therapist who's treating the children, and that therapist may have to testify about which parent is most supportive and is consistent with the therapy, these individuals may get dragged into divorce court to give their testimony about these issues. Very well, so before we sign off on our video in which we are trying to enlighten all of the masses who are walking around oblivious to the fact that you may get dragged into a divorce case someday, remember these scenarios highlight how you can get dragged into divorce cases. And then there's different ways. Just as a quick recap, you can have an ownership interest in marital property, either a real estate interest or a business interest. You can just be a witness to what's going on, either as a family member, friend, co-worker, step-parent, school teacher, principal, or medical provider. There are many different ways that, unbeknownst to a lot of us, we can get dragged into these divorce cases. So be on the lookout and prepare yourselves accordingly. Alright, so that is a wrap on our video as to how people get dragged into divorce cases. Kind of reminds me of the Godfather scene where Michael Corleone's like, I'm always trying to get out, but they keep dragging me back in. Well, now you know how that can happen to some of you. If you know anyone that may find this video helpful, please have them look us up at www.segarralawfirm.com. We have offices in Miami and Orlando, Florida. Se habla español. Please do us a favor and like this video, subscribe to the Divorce Broadcast, and we will see you soon. Thank you.